guys, it's Joe of WagerTalk.com. Are you guys going to come over to WagerTalk on July 4th? Well, you really should. You're likely aware that we'll be offering every daily pick package for only $9 Friday to Monday. But did you also know on July 4th only, we will have a great special 7-day all-access packages for just $76 for the week. That is less than $11 a day, you guys. So make sure on July 4th, you head over to WagerTalk.com and get this deal. 1 week of picks for just $76.
Welcome, MLB First Pitch, Wager Talk TV, and we are live for Thursday, July 1st. First day of July, the heat of the summer, the heat of the baseball season. I'm your host, Steve Merril, in for Drew Martin today on Thursday, joined by my two usual suspects on Thursday here on First Pitch from WagerTalk.com, Dave Cokin and Marco D'Angelo. And we're going to look at 4 big baseball games for Thursday night. A lot of National League matchups. We've got Dodgers-Nationals, an American League tilt between the Astros-Indians, also the Mets-Braves, Jacob deGrom on the mound tonight. And then the nightcap, the late game on ESPN, national TV, Giants and Diamondbacks as well for Thursday. Going to break those down with selections, advice, and then best bets at the end of the show as always. But first, let me bring in Dave Cokin, the only guy that's ahead of me for the past month in net units won at WagerTalk.com is Red Hot Dave Cokin. Dave, welcome to the show. How did Wednesday go for you?
Split a couple of totals in this was one of those times where I wish I'd played full game instead of first 5. I had the Angels first 5, and Ohtani had a disastrous outing. And then they came back and won the game. Yesterday was it was the craziest day of baseball I've seen in a long time. It started off with the Cubs taking a 7-0 lead in the first inning against the Brewers and then giving up 15 straight runs. Never scored again and gave up 15. And it ends with the Yankees getting 7 in the first inning against the Angels and eventually losing that game. Angels coming from 4 runs or more down in the 9th inning to win for only the 4th time in the history of the franchise. Since Chapman was really awful last night. It was just an insane day of baseball. One thing we're seeing, by the way, and I know you and I have talked about this, Steve, when we've been on the show together, the offenses are really starting to come around, and I don't think there's any coincidence that it's tied to the no more sticky stuff rule. We're seeing a ton of runs being scored.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. And, of course, as you know, summer months, June and July, the hotter, thicker air, the ball does travel better. So we normally get a little bit of an offensive bump. But you're right. What I'm seeing is more than just the humidity bump. It's the lack of sticky substance. And, yeah, yesterday I had 2 run lines last night. One of my teams blew a several-run lead, Philly. The other one came back, San Diego, from like a 4-0 deficit to cover the run line. So it has been crazy. And, and Joe Ranieri and I talked about this weeks ago when we started talking about this in June, is that we thought the middle relievers, the bullpens, were the ones we were really going to see some elements of a disaster from the sticky stuff. And I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing blown leads left and right, early and late in games now. Marco D'Angelo, I'll get your thoughts on that. And, I mentioned Dave Cokin and I 1 and 2 the past month at WagerTalk.com, but can't overlook Marco D'Angelo. He's the hottest capper over the past week, number 1 right now at WagerTalk, as he's making a run for us. And, Marco, don't know how you did last night, but I think you're 5-1 on the week in baseball, so I assume you probably did pretty well.
We had one play last night, but it was a 5% play. And when you go to the 9th inning winning 3-0, you're feeling pretty good. And we got the job done. They did. Can't have a game without a little bit of a sweat. Got a couple base runners on in the 9th, and they gave up a run. But I'll take the 3-1 win with a pitcher for the Oakland A's that I've used several times this year. And he's not the household name, but Chris Bassett's pitched marvelous for the A's. And he continues to do so at home, and we cashed a ticket with him. And these blown leads, you talk about where to find the value, and obviously, you pointed out about the runs being scored and looking at taking, the overs right now. But, in-game wagering, with the way these teams are blowing leads right now, how there's such a big overreaction to the in-game market when a team has a lead. You can get some nice dog prices if you got the fortitude to take a team that's losing in game. But you don't have to win all of those. You don't even have to win half of them to make those be profitable. If you just get a couple games where you find a suspect bullpen that you're concerned about and take a dog behind in game.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing to keep in mind about the in-game wagering is that it's very systematic. They're putting in-game odds up left and right on every game automatically. It's kind of computerized, and I don't
Right.
think they necessarily have made the adjustments for what we're seeing, as Dave and you both said, Marco, with the changes here. I mean, we're going to see more blown leads. We're going to see more sporadic bullpens, and they're looking at overall seasonal numbers, and that's not the case. Offense is up, and I think it's here to stay in the near future. Guys, let's break into the first game here in the National League. I wanted to talk about Dodgers and Nationals tonight. Dodgers, obviously, the preseason favorite coming in. They won the World Series last year. The previous World Series winner 2 years ago were the Washington Nationals. We have back-to-back world champions in this game. The Nationals looked like they were done, and they looked like they were done 2 years ago when they won the title with that 19-31 start. Didn't think they could come back this year like they did a couple years ago, but they're making a run right now. They're red hot. Dave, I'll start with you. Dodgers at Nationals. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, they're traveling cross country. They did get a day off, but the Dodgers coming out of a good series against the Giants. They have to make sure they don't let down here as they go to face a team out of their division on the other side of the country. They got Gonsolin on the mound tonight. They've won all 4 of his starts, 2 on the road, 2 at home. He's been okay. I wouldn't say he's been great, but he's been okay. And the Dodgers, of course, they can hit the baseball, but the one area where the Dodgers have struggled, and this is not something brand new. If you go back over the past couple of years, this is the one place where you can kind of get them, is the Dodgers versus lefties on the road, not as prolific offensively. And this year, WRC plus against lefties on the road of only 82, so that's not real outstanding. The Nationals are smoking hot right with the bats right now. Last 7 days, WRC plus 141. The top of their order is absolutely on fire. Kyle Schwarber is hitting everything out of the park. Trey Turner really not getting the attention he deserves. He is one of the elite shortstops in the game. And Soto finally hit a home run at home. All of his homers had been on the road this season. Finally banged out at home. That is a really good top 3 of the order. So the Nationals will have their the Dodgers will have their work cut out for them here against those 3. At least Gonsolin will. And Patrick Corbin has been pitching a lot better at home lately. I don't know that Corbin's ever going to go back to where he was. I mean, this guy was if not an elite starter, he was in that next group, one of the real good number 2 starters in baseball. I don't think he is at that level anymore, but he is pitching pretty good ball at home, where he's been a little above average overall and better lately. And the Nationals have been winning his home starts. I would lean to Washington on this situation here. I think even with the day off, coming out of the Giants series, traveling cross country, I think I'd lean to the Washington side here. Not going to make my card, but I'll give an opinion on the Nats.
Yeah, Marco, I mean, Dave brings up a good point. From a situational setup, definitely looks like it favors the Nationals staying at home. Yes, they had to play yesterday, but they've been at home now for 3 straight games, Mets and the Rays twice. Meanwhile, the Dodgers coming off that 3-game sweep of San Fran, but they had only 5 hits or less in 2 of those 3 wins. So that offense has been a little bit under recently. Marco, what are your thoughts on this one? You know, one thing that jumps out to me is you look at Corbin, he has a 5.3 ERA on the season, but he actually has a lower whip than Gonsolin, a 1.37. So, you know, do you think Corbin finally turns things around here? He's lost 1 straight. They're 8-7 as a team this year with him on the mound.
Well, he's definitely pitching better right now, and you would think that would continue. Plus the fact, as you said, Washington's playing their best baseball of the season right now, winning 8 of their last 10. The one thing I'll point out with the Dodgers in that letdown spot, and you know I am a big situational guy, and I've actually brought it up a couple times on the show about the Dodgers and the Padres when they had their series. Both of those teams turned around and lost the first game of the next series. However, the difference was there wasn't a day off in between. The Dodgers did have a day off. It was a travel day, obviously, going cross-country. That's never a good spot. But they did have a day to regroup. The other thing that's different in this aspect with the Dodgers, you always hear me talk about situations where I like to fade teams when they return home that first game off of a road trip. Well, there's a flip side to that one. I also like to take a team that's on a winning streak when they go on the road for the first game. Because to me, they're really focused in that first road game because they want to try to keep that momentum going. And I think that's a plus side for the Dodgers. And I'll talk a little bit more about the Dodgers later in the show when we get to the best bet section. But what I'm going to talk about for the play here for this game right now is going to be the total. And as Dave said, we opened the show with scoring's up, no question about that. So why do I want to look at an under? Well, I'm going to look at an under in the first 5 innings. And I'm going to look at the 2 starting pitchers. Corbin has been pitching much better the last couple starts. And then I look at the Dodgers starter. Washington hasn't seen him yet, and he has pitched well this year. Now, the problem with him is you're only going to get 3 or 4 innings tops out of him. So you want to get that once or twice through the lineup and get him out of there. That's what I'm looking for. That's all I want him to do. Give me 1 inning of good relief if I need it in the 5th inning. And I'm going to take this first 5 under the total. Dave said about the left-handers and gave you some advanced metrics numbers. I'll give you an old school number. On the road against lefties over the last or this season, 12-3 to the under when the Dodgers are on the road facing a lefty. So that bodes well for what I'm looking at with the under in the first 5. And the Dodgers, the last 3 seasons, after allowing 2 runs or less in back-to-back games, they're 30-13 in the next game to the under. So let's go first 5 under the total in this one. And we are looking at a first 5 under of 5 runs.
Yeah, and let's not forget, guys, I mean, the Nationals offense has heated up recently during these winning streaks, but they're still 30-12 to the under at home this year. I think at one point it was like a 23-5 run a few weeks ago. So they've been an under machine at home. The Dodgers, once again, 3-game sweep for the Giants, 8 hits or less, 5 hits or less in 2 of those 3 wins. So they're not exactly hitting the ball right now. So Marco likes under 5 first inning. The full game line, by the way, is 9.5 to the under. Dodgers are holding steady today, about $1.35 road favorite. That goes at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight on Thursday in our nation's capital. Hey, let's look at the one American League game we're going to talk about, and this is a good one. Another team that's just been red hot all season, especially offensively, yet they have cooled off. You know, I was on Wager Talk today on Tuesday, and one of the 3 games I mentioned was Baltimore as the big dog. We didn't even have a starting pitcher yet as I was doing it, but I just said it looked like maybe the Orioles were starting to turn the corner a little bit, and more so I thought Houston was finally starting to fade. They had that rain delay, the rain out a few games back, and they really haven't played well since. I don't know if that was the turning point catalyst. But Marco, I'll stay with you here. Houston Astros here, a good-sized road favorite right now. I'm seeing them about $1.80 in most spots at Cleveland, 8.5 to the over. How are you approaching this one, Astros at Cleveland on Thursday night?
Well, when you look at this one on the surface, the quick reaction is we always talk about, players get, bettors get a bad taste in their mouth with a team and they want to jump off. Well, if you bet Houston yesterday and you bet Cleveland, just $100 on both of them, well, you lost about $600 yesterday because the Astros were a 285 favorite. Some places as high as 300, but 285 was the common number. And then you look at Cleveland, they lost the doubleheader as a big favorite in both games to the Tigers. So bad taste for backers of both of these squads. So now you got to pick your poison. And I'm looking at it, and neither team is playing well right now. Cleveland's lost 4 of their last 5. And then Houston, who was an absolute machine just a week ago, now has also lost 4 in a row in 5 of their last 6. So concerns here for me on which team I want to back. You look at Valdez goes for Houston. He's been consistent for them. He's allowed 3 runs or less in all 6 starts, with 5 of those starts being 2 runs or less. And he's a pitcher that will go deep for you. He's gone 7 innings or more in 4 of his 6 starts this year. That's a rarity anymore among starting pitchers. So for a team that's been giving up a lot of runs in the last few games, as Houston has, they need a starting pitcher that's going to give them some innings. So that's the only plus I've got there. For me, the way these two teams are hitting the baseball and giving up runs, and what we talked about at the top of the show with the run production being up, there's only one way I can look at this game, and I'm going to look to the over the total here. Cleveland against lefties this season, they faced 30 lefties. Now, they're basically 500 against lefties, but over-under-wise, 21 of the 30 games have gone over the total. And then Houston, as I said, they're on a losing streak. Well, this season, if over a 6-game period, if they've lost 4 or more of that 6-game stretch. In the next game, they have gone over 12 of 16 times. And when the total's been 8 or 8.5 this season involving a Houston game, the total is 22-9 to the over. That's the only way I could play this one. It's over or pass. I don't want any part of either team straight in this game. Let's go over and hope they both just keep giving up a ton of runs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Astros a huge over team this year, even though they've cooled off 48-31 on the season. Cleveland 42-31, so that's a combined 90-62 to the over for these two teams this year. Dave, they both have been ice cold recently, but they're still 90-68 combined straight up. Do you trust the Astros laying $1.80 on the road, though? As Marco said, after losing 3 straight at home, is almost a $3 favorite in every game. Do you think Houston could turn it around today, Dave?
Well, the one difference is tonight Framber Valdez goes, and I think he's actually the best pitcher on this team and is going to emerge as the stopper now that he's healthy. This guy is really good. Hey, wow, excuse me for breaking it. I've got the Mariners' first 5 plus 160, and of all people, Shed Long just hit a 2-run homer, and it's 5-1 in the 3rd inning. So a little bit of a pause for celebration on that. Still a long way to go with that Blue Jays offense, but 5-1 and getting a 2-run homer out of Shed Long is pretty good. Hyunjin Ryu, by the way, we talk about these velocity droppers, and he was never a hard thrower, and he's ticked down a little bit now. This is a guy who I think you can make money going against, or maybe look at overs when he's out there with that Blue Jays offense. Anyway, getting off on a tangent, Valdez is really legit. This is a very talented guy. I love his stuff, and I think if he can stay healthy, this guy is going to be a guy who I believe is eventually going to be in Cy Young conversations down the road. Maybe not this season, but he's that good. And he's he's a lefty against an Indians lineup that has been pathetic against lefties at home this year. Weighted runs created plus, a really good barometer of a team's offense. 100 is average. They're 72 at home against lefties. That stinks. So Houston coming out of a series where, quite frankly, they got humiliated by a bad Orioles team that, if not for the Diamondbacks, might have set some kind of a record for road ineptitude. And I got to tell you, I think the Astros come in really motivated here, and they've got a big pitching edge. Mejia, I've watched a couple of his appearances for the Indians. I think he's probably a bullpen guy. If not, he's going to be a back of the rotation guy, and that's about it. I just don't see him being a guy who's going to be able to go out there and give you quality starts on a regular basis. So I think there's a big edge on the mound here. I think the Astros are motivated. I'd go runs line in this one. If you're going to play this game, Houston minus 1.5. To me, it's only minus 115 or so. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, and the Astros, in general, have been pretty good against the run line this year because they've been smashing the ball. So we'll see if they can get that offense going again here. And that's what you like to see when you're playing a run line. You like to play the road team because you get the discount on the price because you don't have to worry about that 1-run bottom of the 9th win. And then also you like to see teams that can put runs up and teams that allow runs like Cleveland. So I think the run line definitely is a safer way to play Houston if you're looking that way in this game and cut that juice down a bit. Dave, I'll stick with you in our next game here, and this is a doozy. Atlanta Braves, New York Mets. Braves at home here against Jacob deGrom has been probably as good as any pitcher the last 30-plus years. And the Braves offense broke out last night, as they often do every season, with 20 runs. And let's keep in mind, guys, they were shut out last August and came back and put up the next day 28 runs against the Marlins after that shutout loss. And I went back and looked earlier this season when they had the big performance about a month ago. I think they scored 7 or more like in 3 of their next 4 games. They went over like in 3 of the next 4. So, in my opinion, that's normally a barometer of good things are to come. Dave, does it happen, though, against the best pitcher in baseball tonight, Jacob deGrom?
Unlikely. And the difference here, I mean, not only are they facing deGrom, but they faced David Peterson and then Sean Reed Foley, who I have no idea how he's in the majors. And they just blew up the team. Mets eventually went to a position player, I think, to wrap the game up. It's deGrom. I mean, he's human. He actually gave up a couple of runs last time out, but his numbers are absurd. He's just so utterly dominant. Ian Anderson has been okay for the Braves, but he hasn't been great by any means. So it's a pretty big pitching edge with deGrom. The problem is, can you back the Mets, who are, you got offenses exploding all over baseball, but not the Mets. The Mets WRC plus the last week is 71, which is bad to begin with. But when you look at all the big numbers that it is, huge numbers on weighted runs created plus in baseball from team to team over the past week, that 71 is second worst on the board. Is it second worst or third worst? It's third worst on the board. The only teams worse, the Phillies over the past week and the A's over the past week. That's bad, though. And so to me, I mean, this ballpark lends itself to overs. You got a team that scored 20 runs last night. But I think this is one where Ian Anderson's going to come in fired up to face deGrom. The Mets aren't hitting. And deGrom is just deGrom. If you get one run off him in 5 innings, you're doing well. It's a low total, but the only way I can look is first 5 under.
I'll tell you what, though, it's Marco, it's not as low as it was initially. It opened 6 in some spots overnight. Other books this morning opened at 6.5. We're now seeing a 7 to the over. That's a pretty substantial move in baseball. I'm not sure I've ever seen a 6 go to a 7 that quickly. And keep in mind, 5.5, 6 is the deGrom standard now. So the betting market, at least early on, does think maybe there's some momentum with Atlanta, or maybe something about deGrom not being dominant in that last start. What are your thoughts, Marco?
Well, I'll just interrupt for a second. I think the betting market is just firing on all overs right now. I mean,
that's a good take. Yeah, that's an interesting point, because when you have a 6, it's very low. It doesn't take much from the bullpens. You're right. And that's another reason, like you said, Dave, the first 5 would make some sense if you're worried about that, because these bullpens have been dicey. Actually, I did a video about a month ago here on Wager Talk TV, and I did a free play under 6.5 for one of the games. And right before I did that, I had Ralph Michaels pull up the numbers, because I knew under 6.5s had hit pretty good this year. And at that point, it was 32 and 21. This is about a month ago, 60% for the season. But Ralph sent me all the numbers for the last 9 years. Blindly playing the under when the total is 6.5 or less has made you money 8 of the last 9 seasons on the blind, including this year still. And that's almost a 750 game sample. So once again, it's now at 7, so technically it doesn't hit that cutoff anymore. But, totals are usually low for a reason, and they're usually high for a reason. The NBA this year, the highest numbers are going over, the lowest numbers are going under for the majority of the season. So, yeah, Marco, it's an interesting move on the total here from 6 to 7. What's your takeaway on this? I know you're kind of a situational guy like me. I mean, how much do you read into that 20-run performance last night, and is it all negated because it is Jacob deGrom off not one of his best outings? Is it a bounce-back spot for him?
Yeah, the public, remember that when the overnight lines come out, guys, the games are still being played the night before. So, we didn't see that 20 spot from Atlanta, being put up and factored in. The market's going to overreact when a team scores 20 runs. But here's the fact about Atlanta. You go back prior to scoring the 20 runs last night, they scored 3 runs or less in 10 of their previous 11 games. And yes, it's Jacob deGrom on the mound, so you don't expect to get many runs off this guy. And in 4 road starts this year, he has yet to allow a run. 25 scoreless innings on the road for Jacob deGrom. Now, Dave talked about when he said with Ian Anderson, that he's going to be pumped up tonight facing deGrom. And that's another reason why I think when you talked about the blind betting 6.5s under blindly in baseball the last several years, well, for you to get a 6.5 total in baseball or a 6, you need one of the 2 pitchers has to be an absolute stud for that to occur. And so often what happens, I mean, let's face it, what is the other player that a starting pitcher is going to be compared to? Your mound opponent. So everybody that faces Jacob deGrom is going to be pumped up sky high to try to pitch their best performance. One, because they know they can't afford to give up many runs, because it's going to be a game where most likely you're not going to get more than 2 runs off of deGrom in a bad outing. And then we talk about deGrom with run support. How often do we see he never gets any run support? Well, part of that is I think sometimes mentally the offense feels they got a night off when deGrom's on the field. They don't need to score a lot of runs for him. And 2, you have that factor of the opposing pitcher being pumped up. So where am I going with all of this? Same place Dave went. I'm going first 5. That's where the value is at, where you're going to get both starting pitchers, most likely for the full 5 innings. We're looking at 3.5. We're getting, the full half amount of what the game is, and definitely 5 innings with deGrom involved versus a full game and bring the bullpen into equation, that's a no-brainer. I'm going to go first 5 under the 3.5. And as far as the Mets go this season, when they have had a total that was 7 or less, they're 21-11 to the under. And of course, deGrom's been a big part of that, but he hasn't pitched 32 times, so the team does go under without him on the mound because they can't hit the baseball.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Mets have been offensively challenged for a good part of the season. And by the way, deGrom's had 13 starts this year. His first game, there were 8 runs. You look at his last 12 starts, 10 of those 12 have had 7 runs or less total scored. The other 2, 8 and 9. And that's deGrom. And I keep saying he's coming off a bad, I don't want to say bad, he's coming off a subpar performance. He allowed 1 walk and 3 hits in 6 innings. He did give up 2 earned runs. That's the only reason I guess you could say it's subpar. But, I mean, that's superhuman when you're saying a 3-hit, 6-inning outing is off your standard. So, yeah, be interesting to see what he can do against an Atlanta team, once again, that put up 21s last night. But like Marco said, hadn't done much the 10 games before that. Hey, by the way, guys, before we move to this last game, a quick reminder, WagerTalk.com. We have a 4th of July special there right now, $76 special. Check that out. Phillips 76, 1976, 1776. I love the WagerTalk promo codes. They're always on spot. WagerTalk.com. And before we leave the NL East, the NL East, whatever you want to call it, the Mets right now are in first place with a -2 run differential. The Nationals are in second with a +2. Guess who has the best run differential in the NL East? The Miami Marlins, who are dead last. They're +21. They theoretically should have the best record in the league. So something to keep an eye on. And by the way, the Braves are +14. They're second best. And Phillies are -24. So it's just kind of interesting to look at that. Something Dave and I talked about on Tuesday about how run differential in the long term can be a barometer for a team's real one-loss record. Marlins right now in first place, not last place, if you look at that metric. Marco, let's finish with this game. You know, I was close to using Padres-Reds. I thought that was a good matchup, but they were all 7 o'clock Eastern games, so I wanted to switch it out and go with Giants-Diamondbacks, because this is the ESPN late-night game on national TV Thursday, so I know there'll be a lot of interest. And it's an interesting game to talk about because the Giants, by the way, run differential on the Giants still +97, one of the best in the league. So they have been for real this year. But, Marco, as you mentioned, they're coming off the 3-game sweep against the L.A. Dodgers. They did not hit the ball well. They lost first baseman Belt, their 3rd leading home run hitter last week. They've kind of cooled off since. What are your thoughts here against an Arizona team that's been just god-awful over the last couple months?
Well, I had to check if I had big enough baseballs to do it. And you know what? I'm feeling pretty sassy this week, 5-1. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to call for an Arizona Diamondback victory tonight here and go against Johnny Cueto. And, you know, Cueto's coming off a great game. If you want to just look at recency bias, hey, he's coming off his best game of the season. However, if you want to dig deeper and look at his numbers on the road this year, not good. His ERA is just under 5, but more alarming has been his whip on the road, 1.69. You can't put that many batters on base and keep getting away with it. To me, you're dancing through the raindrops and eventually you get caught in a storm. And I think that's what's going to happen here tonight. And San Francisco's been a story so far this year. They've been a surprise. You know, we thought they would be improved, but I don't know anybody that thought they were going to be playing as well as they were playing. Now, granted, they're coming in here on a 3-game losing streak. But what I'm more concerned about with the Giants right now is if you look at their last 5 games, 4 of those 5 games, now granted, they played a few games in LA and faced some good pitchers, but they've scored 2 runs or less now in 4 of the last 5 games. And they're going to be facing Merrill Kelly, who is coming off 2 of his best performances. He went 6 innings, shutout ball, struck out 5 in his last outing. And before that, against Milwaukee, who's playing good baseball right now, he went 7 innings, allowed just 1 run, scattering 5 hits in that one. I'm going to give the Diamondbacks a shot here. They're out of everything for the season already. It's only July 1st. So what are they going to get pumped up for? Well, I think when you're playing a division rival at home, that's the spots where you got to try. If you're going to try to pick a spot for them, that's where I would look, and that's where I'm looking tonight. I'm going Diamondbacks to pull the upset.
Yeah, Dave, I mean, we always talk about the worst teams in baseball are going to win at least 60-plus games, at least the season over-under wins tell us that every year. And the best team in baseball is going to lose at least 60. And the Giants weren't even expected to be the best team in baseball. And they're 50-29 even after 3 straight losses. D-backs 22-60. Is this one of those winnable games? I mentioned earlier, Dave, on Tuesday when you and I were both on Wager Talk Today, I used the Orioles on that show because the Orioles looked like they were finally turning the corner after 20 straight road losses. The Astros were cooling off. Problem here is I do want to fade the Giants, like Marco said, but the Diamondbacks, they break the 24-game road losing streak, and what have they done? They've lost 4 straight since. They just can't put it together. Dave, do you trust them at all in this game?
Not for 9 innings. And that's where I'll differ from Marco. The Giants have a big late inning edge. Their bullpen's okay, and they didn't have to play yesterday. And Giants, by the way, have been very good off a day off. I think they're 11-2 this year when they didn't play the day before. But I think you can make a good case that you've got an edge on the mound with Merrill Kelly against Johnny Cueto. I know Cueto still has the occasional turn back the calendar game where he looks like a guy who was a legit number 1 starter. But those haven't been happening very often. And Marco mentioned this. He mentioned some stats on the road. I'll throw in a couple because I'm more of an advanced metrics guy, so I'll use those numbers. And they're terrible. I mean, his OPS on the road for the season is 904. That's you're not just not getting people out when it's 904. His game score average on the road 43. Overall, it's 52. So he's a guy who's got a big home road split this year. He's been a pretty good pitcher at home. He's been a pretty bad pitcher on the road. Merrill Kelly, and again, this is eye test stuff. He's had good command in his last 2 starts. Now, that doesn't always mean walks. What it means is not getting the middle of the plate. Kelly was in a bit of a rut where he was getting his strikes, but he's in the middle of the plate, and that's poor command. And unless you're deGrom, you can't live in the middle of the plate in Major League Baseball. He's been a lot better at hitting the corners, hitting the quadrants in his last couple of starts. So he's in good form. I give the pitching edge here to Merrill Kelly. All the other edges, to me, point to the Giants. They did have the day off. They're probably not real happy about what happened with the Dodgers series. And they're better offensively, and they've got the better bullpen. But I only want 5 innings here. And for 5 innings, you look at the starting pitching, and the edge goes to Kelly. I'm going to take, if it can get plus money, to me, you just go ahead and grab it. That's what I'm doing here. About plus 110, first 5 Diamondbacks to get that part of the game in the win column.
Yeah, I mean, for the game, you're getting plus 120. You're only taking plus 110 first half. And like you said, you're getting that terrible Arizona Diamondback bullpen out of the equation for just 10 cents less. And they're a lot more than 10 cents worse, I will tell you that, than the Giants bullpen. So it's a good way to approach this one. And like I said, I'm looking for reasons to fade the Giants, maybe get on the D-backs at some point, and maybe tonight's that turning point. By the way, Merrill Kelly here. We had Mejia in the Indian game. This might be the first time ever on First Pitch we have 2 Wager Talk handicappers, cousins and brothers pitching in games. I never even noticed that till you all said Mejia earlier. We'll see how that goes tonight. Merrill with 2 L's, though, unfortunately, no relation.
And he's not in the game, and he's not pitching today, but we'll mention that Marco Gonzalez was activated by the Mariners today, so we can throw him into the mix. But I don't think there's anything about Kokins out there.
I was going to say, I feel like I've seen a Cokin occasionally. There was a football player, William Mary, named Cokin, actually. He was a really good receiver.
Really?
But I'm trying to think if there's a baseball one. Yeah, fast little guy. He was good. We'll have to find out if there's a relation.
I was a fast little guy, but I never played football at William and Mary.
He might have been a Northerner, too. There might be a relation there. I'll have to dig deeper there and find out for you. Some Kokins, Marcos. We'll get a Cokin in baseball. There's got to be one of the minors. We got Marco back, Merrill Kelly, Mejia on the mound tonight, so we'll see what happens.
Don't we have a Case Stewart, too, pitcher? There's a pitcher, Case Stewart.
Yes, that's right. Case Stewart.
Cole Stewart, a former very highly regarded prospect who didn't pan out, but he's now back in the major leagues. He was a Twins prospect who it just didn't work out for him, but at least he's back in the bigs.
One thing we do not have is a Presman in Major League Baseball, nor will we ever have that probably. So I think we're safe for now. Not too many Canadians to start with. Or Servansky, we're safe. Hey, Marco, let's get a best bet here on the way out. WagerTalk.com, Marco, your best bets. By the way, I short sold you. I said 5-1. That was the last 3 days. 11-4 in baseball the past week. as you're trying to catch Dave Cokin and myself for that number one lead for the last 30 days. Marco, red hot in baseball. I know you got some best bets tonight. Let us know what you have, and give us a little free taste on the way out as well.
All right. Well, so far I have one play posted at Wager Talk. It is in tonight's basketball game. I will have my baseball up right after the show here. And for the best bet here on the show, guys, I'm going to go back to that Dodger game. And, we talked about the possible letdown after the Giants series. But as I said, that doesn't concern me with the day off and being that now they're starting a road trip and they're on a winning streak. Also, what I'm looking at in this game with the Dodgers is after allowing 2 runs or less, 2 straight games, and they're facing an opponent that scored 9 runs or more. This is a league-wide system in baseball over the last 5 years when this has occurred. A team that is allowed 2 runs in back-to-back games, 2 runs or less, and facing a team that's coming off a abnormal high-scoring game. Blindly playing that 40-19 over the last 5 seasons in baseball. Now, for the Dodgers themselves, coming off 3 or more consecutive unders the last 2 seasons. So if they're playing the unders, that's Dodger baseball. You're getting good pitching. You're winning games probably 4-1, 4-2, whatever. That's Dodger baseball as we know it at its best, and that's what we saw in the Giants series. They're 19-3 when they're in that angle. And then the last one, we talked about Pat Corbin pitching a little bit better in the last start or two, and will he ever regain that form that he had a few years ago, whenever he got signed by Washington? Well, here's a little stat on him the last 2 seasons. When he has been installed as an underdog of 150 or less, he's 0-9, his team, with him on the mound. I'm going to go ahead and take the Dodgers as my best bet tonight. Keep the train a-rolling for Dodger Blue.
Marco D'Angelo, LA Dodgers, minus about $1.35, $1.40 I'm seeing right now at Washington. That goes at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight on Thursday. LA Dodgers, Marco's best bet here for the show. Dave Cokin, I'll throw it to you. What do you have tonight at WagerTalk.com, and what are you looking at for the freebie here on the show?
The only game I've got up is the one I already talked about, and so I'll use it as the best bet here. First 5 on the Diamondbacks, plus 110. I already gave you the reasons why, so no reason to go through them again. By the way, just something funny that's happening, and I won't take long on this. I got another new car, and so I keep on getting little notifications. The car's in for tinting right now, and I keep on getting little notifications. Your car's unlocked. The car's all over at the dealership, but I keep on getting messages here that the car's unlocked. I love this. I love this stuff. Anyway, the car's nice. It'll have nice dark windows on it now. I went slightly over the legal limit, but got to live dangerously, right? Diamondbacks first 5 is my best bet.
All right, so first 5, and we just covered that, of course. And D-backs, once again, only about 10 cents cheaper on the first 5 versus a full game. You get that whole bullpen out of the equation. Dave, I'm going to piggyback on that same game for my best bet for this show. I'm going to look at the under 9. Now, once again, I'm concerned about the bullpens, but the first 5 is only 4.5. I'd rather get that key number of 9 for the full game. And once again, as Marco, we've all talked about, the Giants coming off the 3-game sweep against the Dodgers, and LA did it with 8 hits or less. It's because the Giants couldn't score. 2 runs or less in all 3 losses. They've now had single-digit hits. In fact, 6 hits or less in 3 of their last 5. And it's not a coincidence they lost Brandon Belt, their first baseman, 3rd leading home run hitter on the team last week, to the injured list. I'm looking for San Francisco to fade here a little bit in the near future. I'm not ready to back Arizona quite yet on the outright win, as my 2 compadres here on the show did today. So I'll look under 9 instead. It's a hitter-friendly park, but Arizona's been ice cold offensively. They've had 8 hits or less now in 4 straight games. Neither team hitting the ball well. I think Merrill Kelly can get some good innings tonight. So we'll look at under 9 minus 115. And just a quick reminder, I do have 2 best bets at WagerTalk.com tonight on a 20-8 all sports run the past 2 weeks. Steve 150 gets you $150 off any 30 or 90-day all access. Steve 150, WagerTalk.com. And let's recap the best bets here for the shows. Once again, I'm using under 9, Diamondbacks, Giants. Dave's looking first 5 plus $1.15 on the D-backs. And Marco D'Angelo taking another NL West team, the LA Dodgers, minus $1.33. That goes at 7 Eastern. That Diamondback Giant game goes at 9:40 Eastern tonight on national TV Thursday. Dave, Marco, thank you so much. Robert, back in the control center, thank you. And I'll be back tomorrow, July 2nd, Friday, for another edition of First Pitch right here on Wager Talk TV. Please subscribe to Wager Talk TV, like and subscribe, and most importantly, leave us a comment below. Let us know who you like tonight on Thursday in Major League Baseball. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again tomorrow, 1:45 Eastern here on Wager Talk TV.
What's better than $2 Tuesday at Sports Memo? How about Freebie Friday? We can't go any lower than free, and each and every Friday we'll hand select a best bet from one of the hottest handicappers on the site and give it out for free. All you have to do is each and every Friday, head over to sportsmemo.com. The Freebie Friday will be listed on the homepage, and you'll be just a click away from a free bet.